Okay. We have 9. Oh, there's Nicole. There's Coda. Okay. Looks like we have quorum with 10 people here. So let's go ahead and I will call this meeting to order at 6:02. Thanks again, everyone, for coming here. Do I have any changes to the agenda or a motion to accept the agenda?
Are we going to vote on the signature requirement this year? If so, we should probably add that as an action item.
I'm going to wait until the election committee gives their report. I recall the motion being open-ended and not really having a set expiration date. So I don't think we need, and I feel uncomfortable adding that to the agenda last minute before it starts as well. So.
Well, then I'll move to accept the agenda as written, Andrea.
Okay. Thank you. Do I have a second?
I second. This is George.
Thank you, George. Okay. Anyone opposed? All right, wonderful. Do I have a motion to accept the minutes?
I make a motion to accept the minutes.
Thanks, George. And then I heard a second from
I'll second it.
Craig. Thank you. Do I have any opposition to accepting the minutes that Tracy sent out?
I'm gonna abstain on that.
Okay. Do you have, and the reason being?
I was gone last meeting.
We're gone last meeting, yeah, of course. All right, awesome. Thank you, thank you. Okay, moving right along into our community reports. So I see Coda here, so I'm gonna go ahead and give him the floor first. Coda.
Hey,
Hi,
how's it going, everyone? Happy New Year. Good to see you guys. So yeah, my name is Coda Zeiser. I'm the Deputy Director of Community. Two quick updates on our end. So we actually just announced some of these streets that are going to be repaved as part of the Mayor's 60 Streets initiative. So this is about $40 million that we allocated to street repaving. And we're able to do about 54 miles citywide. Let me pull up the ones that are specific to OB. So we have Bacon Street from West Point Loma Boulevard to Cape May Ave, and then West Point Loma Boulevard from Nimitz Boulevard to Adrian Street, and then about 6 or 7 other streets throughout D2 as well. And so these are over the next 2 fiscal years. And so we are spacing out some of the work. So I don't have a timeline of when those specific streets are going to be repaved, but if you guys are curious, I can get that those answers for you. Also effective January 1st of this year is the minimum wage at $15 an hour in the city of San Diego. This is actually an initiative that the mayor passed when he was a council member back in the early 2010s. And so yeah, effective January 1st, minimum wage is $15 an hour. And then lastly is Christmas tree recycling. So if you still have your Christmas tree up, the city does have about 17 locations citywide. I'll put a link in the chat so you guys can see which ones are closest to you. And they are from, they'll be open and accepting trees until January 23rd. So I'll put the link so you guys can check it out there. Other than that, that's about it on my end. I'll put my email in the chat as well. So if you guys have any questions or want any follow-ups, you can reach out to me directly. But I'm more than happy to take any questions.
Thanks. Yeah, please do get us.
I have a question.
Craig, jump in, and then I see Kevin, you're here.
On the new recycling policy regarding food scraps and other organic waste, when are we going to get new bins or something to address the nuts and bolts of getting that done?
Yeah, I believe that I think they're green bins coming out. I haven't seen anything from ESD, but I know that from Environmental Services, but I know that just took effect as well. So I'll get you an answer on that. But yeah, I'll follow up with you on that one. Sorry, who asked that question?
That was Craig Klein.
Okay, got it. Craig, I'll put my email in the chat, and if you could just DM me yours, I'll get you that answer.
I had a question relating to that as well. I'm a little curious how that's going to work in a place like OB. We've got, a lot of multifamily stuff, the alleys, parking is real tight. And, if I have 2 units, so if I have 2 of those green bins, for example,
Mhm.
You know, I don't know if there's going to be exceptions to that. It's going to get a little crowded. So is there some guidelines or something we can look up?
Yeah, I
More
saw a
detail
quick
on that?
fact sheet that Environmental Services sent out to us. I think it was over the holiday break. Let me dig that up in my emails and I'll send it to Andrea and the group so you guys can take a look at it.
Excellent, thank you. I noticed that Bacon Street was listed on the repave stuff, so that's long overdue. So looking forward to that.
Yeah, I know that's a rough one. So, and I think Virginia raised her hand as well.
Yeah, Virginia, you have a question? Go ahead. Virginia, oh, I can't see her. I think you're on mute. Virginia?
Okay,
There you go.
I was, I wanted to ask, do they pick up every week or every other week with the green bins?
I'm not sure on if it's every week or every other week, but as soon as I get that fact sheet, I'll give you that answer.
Thank you.
Yeah, sorry for all of the trash stuff recently. I've been focused on Republic Services and that strike, and so this one has kind of been a little bit less of a focus. But I'll get you those answers to Craig, Kevin, and Virginia.
And I see Nicole's hand.
Yes, hi Coda. I was just wondering if you had any updates on the OB peer project for us.
Yes, so I think right now the next working group meeting that's led by D2 is in February. We're at the point now where I think we've hashed out the ideas. We have a good understanding of what direction we want to head in. How do we initiate what potentially could be the design phase, and how do we utilize those 8.4 million? Aside from that is all the emergency repairs that are being done. And let's see, I believe the pier's reopened right now. Correct me if I'm wrong on that one. We did the emergency repairs at the end of December. And I believe it should be open at this point now. I'll give you confirmation on that. I haven't seen that email yet from engineering and Parks and Rec. That's the short-term stuff. The long-term discussions, like I said, I think we've hashed out the ideas and have a clear direction of where we want to go. I think for the most part, everybody's on the same page that we're looking for a full replacement of the pier. And now how do we utilize the 8.4 million that we have? How do we get to a point where we're able to apply for federal grants? Because this pier checks off a lot of boxes, especially if we do a public-private partnership with institutions like Scripps or UCSD or other organizations like that. And so the funding's there, but a lot of times when you are applying for those grants, you need a design or some type of environmental impact report done. And so those are going to be the next steps and what our office's government affairs team has been kind of focusing on. And then, working with D2 about how do we initiate that. Because we've had 2 meetings and they've been, I think, really productive and great. But a lot of the ideas feel really abstract. And hopefully by February we get some good concrete next steps about what's coming up next.
Great, thank you. I'd love to reach out and follow up a little bit further on that conversation with you. So I'll send over an email. Thanks again.
Thanks, Nicole.
Okay, thanks, Coda. I don't see any more hands. Nicole, yours is still up though, so if you could lower it. And let me see, I don't see Teddy. Cole told me he wasn't going to be here, and I don't think Rachel's in here as well. All right, so we will move on then to non-agenda public comment. Do I have anyone wishing to make a 2-minute non-agenda public comment? Kim, Taddy, I see your hand up first. So whenever you unmute yourself, they'll have 2 minutes.
I'm going to read this. Hello, my name is Kim Taddy, and my concern is the extensive unpermitted remodeling that's going on at 4763 Santa Cruz Avenue. So does the board have jurisdiction or influence in the situation? Or if not, I want to inform the board of what's been going on in the neighborhood and with the City Development Services Department. The background. Since August, there's been nearly daily construction crews performing substantial remodeling without permits. At least 3 requests for investigation have been filed with the code department. On September 23rd, the owner was sent a civil penalty notice and order. The notice cites 6 code violations, including unpermitted plumbing, mechanical, electrical, omission of windows, new windows and doors, removal of interior walls in the basement, and installation of a new concrete driveway, curb, and apron in the public right-of-way. Part 2 of that notice states, in bold, prior to commencement of work, submit plans and obtain required permits to remove or keep unpermitted work and complete all required inspections. Since then, there's been construction crews nearly daily. The front yard was graded and a large parking lot was formed. A new roof was put on. There's scaffolding. They jackhammer removal of the brick facade, black papered and chicken wired. As of this morning, permits have not been issued and construction crews continue on a nearly daily basis. In fact, they were jackhammering the facade again today. On several occasions, I contacted Travis Espinoza and his supervisor, R.M. Cervantes at the Development Services Department. Mr. Espinoza emailed back, according to DSD field office, the property owner is entitled to perform work up to required inspection. For example, if they have to dig a trench, work done, his emphasis, regardless of application status, before we can inspect the trench. So honestly, this owner conducted extensive remodeling without even applying for permits until he was served with the notice of civil penalty. He continues to construct even though he still does not have approved plans and permits, and it appears that the Development Services Department is continuing to allow this. So why has this construction project not been shut down? And I want to let you know that I sent an email to Jennifer Campbell and Mr. Teddy Martinez and have received no answer. I thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you for bringing it to the board's attention. I think other neighbors have reached out as well. Unfortunately, yeah, you've done all the right things and there's not much we can do outside of, contacting code.
What was that address again, please? 4763 what street?
Santa Cruz.
Santa Cruz, thank you.
Yeah, I've been a little bit involved in that one as well. I walked by there when they were knocking the curb out. Like, what is going on here? It's real disappointing to see. It seems like code enforcement real drags their feet on this stuff, and I don't know who at the city has the incentive, the motivation to sort of protect the neighbors on this situation. I mean, that's the whole point of code enforcement is health and public safety and sanity. And it just seems like they're just trying to accommodate the owner as much as possible, who is just flagrantly violating all the construction and permitting laws. And there's just no way he's allowed to do whatever the heck he wants. I mean, the notice verbatim says on there that, you will not commence work until you have a permit. So DSD's response is just ridiculous. I don't go and build a second floor on my house and then apply for a permit. That's not how it works. So that's my comment anyways.
Thanks. Yeah, and we agree, and we obviously sympathize with you. And we've, members of the board have also filed some other code enforcement issues, and we're getting the same response. I wish we had influence to push them forward a little bit more, but we do know about the situation, and we are, staying abreast of it. Kim, thank you for bringing it to our attention, though.
I'd like to make a comment.
Yeah, Dan.
Dan Dennison's name. I happen to live next door to that beautiful unpermitted remodeling. And this mess started in September. And the sequence of event is pretty interesting, including multiple threats to me and Laura. And as a matter of fact, the threat was so bad one time that we left our house and stayed in a motel. Very, very frightening threats have been made. Basically, I communicated all this in a lengthy memo to Teddy Martinez on September the 3rd. On September the 9th, I got several pages of text, the very threatening text messages. I filed a police report on September the 30th, and then I had a phone call. Subsequent, I filed another police report. Code enforcement's had gone, as Kim had said, to these people in code enforcement. And if you go, and then it finally was referred up to Leslie Sennett, who's apparently the head of the DSD. And then she bounced it down to Morris Dye, who's a program services, whatever that is. And he doesn't seem to have much knowledge of what's going on. In the records, when you look at it, it says, is there any code enforcement issues? No. It says there's no code enforcement issues. It is just incredible to see this. And additionally, it's a 5-bedroom house, and he told me he's going to convert it to a 7-bedroom, full-time, short-term vacation rental. And that is just so bad for the neighborhood. Kim is seeing it across the street, and I'm hearing it next door. And I'm actually even afraid of what may happen to my dogs. And you know how much I like my dogs. This is really just
And if you
absolutely
would,
unreasonable,
what's
unacceptable.
the nature of these threats? Yeah, what are the nature of the threats?
I don't
I mean,
think
threats of bodily harm, physical harm.
the police department suggested I do a restraining order, but I'm not about to do that because of the repercussions that could come. And even the police department told me that if I do a restraining order, that who knows what could happen. And I'm afraid, and other things have been said to me that I'm afraid to report it to Development Services. And so it's really interesting when you're in a position where you feel frightened about things. It's really not right. And this guy is, well,
Yeah, no, I'm really sorry to hear about that, Dan. And I'm going to follow up with an email because I do have some questions that I had for Teddy, and I was hoping he'd be here. And I'll attempt, I guess, to press him a little bit further to get us all some.
This
well, Teddy
this
told me
sounds
that
like we have mafioso in the neighborhood.
who?
This sounds like we're talking about, like organized crime type people. If people are actually threatening harm.
We might, want to continue this conversation offline.
Okay.
I hope Coda, I hope Coda paid attention to that. And
Yeah.
Coda, if you need some more information on that, I'd be happy to talk about it. It's involving code enforcement has just made the situation far, far worse than just letting him just do his own thing. Honestly, would have been better, and it's kind of sad.
And one last thing, there was a discussion today between one of the people who filed the request for an investigation, had a discussion with a guy in the code and programs services, and it sounds to me like he was pretty clueless about what was going on. I mean, the complaint has numerous items in it, very specific, and it's like, this guy can just do whatever he wants, and it doesn't make any difference.
Yeah, we understand your frustration.
Yeah,
I see that a lot.
I remember seeing this come up like middle of last year, August, September, I think. I saw an email on this. And so, yeah, if you guys follow up with this, can you just make sure that I'm in the loop on any emails you send to Teddy on it? It sounds like you guys have a pretty extensive thread with him, but just keep me in the loop on it. I know that code enforcement does take time, and civil penalty notices take a while, and oftentimes when you want to get to the result that you want, it requires legal action and appearances in court. And so, yeah, just please keep me in the loop on it, and then I'll track it on my end as well and elevate as necessary.
The basic issue: no one should be able to build anything until they have a permit, and he has no permits.
Well, thank you, Coda. We appreciate that. I think I see that Daniel Mikowski wanted to make a public comment. So as soon as you unmute yourself and stop talking, I will give you 2 minutes as well. Start talking, sorry.
Okay, thank you for having me. I have a lot to talk about, but I'll try to nutshell it. Try to be brief.
Yeah.
There's okay, sure. Let me continue here. There's an election coming up in your district, in my district. I live in Bay Hole, but I pretty much grew up in Ocean Beach way back, a long time ago, surfing and having fun. But regarding the election, well, let me back up a minute before I forget. there's an article written by Scott Lewis in Voice of San Diego on a Midway district. Look, I highly recommend you all read it. And it's very emotional, and I think you'll find it very interesting. And I'll bet you not one of you even knew about it, but it's true. Every candidate for San Diego City Council ought to read that article. Every candidate, no question, on the Midway area. But anyway, let me continue on here quickly. You get what you pay for when you vote. And 4 years ago, I ran. No one from Ocean Beach even bothered to read what I wrote because the media labeled me a lower tier candidate because I didn't have a couple $100,000 to throw in the campaign. And it's all about money. And I'm going to be difficult with all of you, and forgive me, but you're prostituting your vote. And you can look at me with a straight face, and you can smirk, and you can laugh at me.
Say you had 2 minutes. So if you could just wrap it up. Thank you.
Okay. This election in District 2, for the love of God, read what people write on the ballot, and don't follow the people that have 1 million endorsements, because really, ladies and gentlemen, wake up. Wake up. It's a club. It's a private club.
Thank you, Daniel.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Does anyone else have a non-agenda public comment?
I just, this is George. I'd like to ask Daniel to put the reference for what he mentioned in that article. Could he put it in the chat?
Thank you. Okay.
Andrea, sorry,
Yeah.
I had my hand up on the item right before the last one. That's okay.
Got it.
Not to belabor that point, but as a new property owner on the block for the 4763 Santa Cruz, I would just like to be kept in the loop on what's happening there. I'm very familiar with that building, and it's quite large. And I've been keeping, I've been watching the activity, had no idea that it was going on unscrupulously. So, and a quick scan of OpenDSD definitely doesn't show anything there. So as a neighbor, I'd like to know and be kept in the loop on that as well. So Coda and Kevin and everyone else, I'm in very close proximity now to this site. So I'd like to be in the loop. Thanks.
Yeah, noted, Chris. Thank you. Okay. Moving right along. Okay, to our first agenda item. So I have Richard and Melanie. Were you guys able to meet for the election committee?
No, I wasn't available. I have not been available until today.
Okay, well, we will still go ahead and get all the updated materials. I think they're in the drive somewhere, and we can change the dates so they're available for everyone to download. So please, if you're interested in continuing your term on the planning board, make sure you fill that out in completion and submit it by February to Melanie and Richard. And we also, again, still have 2 open vacancies. So anyone who would be interested in joining the planning board, please do reach out, and I guess lobby them, tell them how much fun we have here. And we will be holding elections by, again, mail-in vote and online.
Okay, I have some questions.
Yeah.
So first of all, there are 10 open vacancies come March, just for everybody's information. There's 2 at-larges and 2 openings in the 7th district, and then 1 from each other district. I went online to look at all the data that we had posted, but most of it is from last year's election. We did make changes in 2019, and the latest information posted is for 10 signatures. I don't know if that is still something that we will hold, but the next thing is I wanted to know how the candidates are to get those ballots to me or Melanie. Is that going to go through you, or is that going to come straight to us? Is it going to go online and then I have to go find it online? How is that process going to work?
How would you like to receive them, Richard? We can certainly have candidates email them to you if everyone could. I mean, it is up to you since you have to verify them. Would you prefer email or mail?
I'd prefer email.
Okay.
Absolutely, email would be good. But now, there was something said about doing this through the city, some kind of thing with the city?
No.
Okay.
We run all of our own elections. Yes.
Well, I thought so too, but
Yeah.
I thought I saw something going by that said they were gonna do an electronic voting through something that the city had already set up. But if that's not true, then
No.
disregard what I just said.
Yeah. No, we will be setting up another electronic voting system. I put you in touch with Corey from the town council who'll be helping us with
The
that.
town council, okay.
Yeah, the town council. Yeah. Not the city. So I put you in touch with Corey. So yeah, work with him on that. And then mail our PO box. We still have that. So anyone can mail in a ballot. And if the election committee would like to, we can also leave a drop box at the OB Business Center again for any in-person voting.
Okay, so I would like to have some kind of way to update the online data, but I don't have the administration privileges to do so. I don't know if that's something that I can get Tracy to help me with.
Yeah, so Tracy does most of the website work. So please do reach out to Tracy and she can help you with anything.
Okay, because I have a list here of the changes that we can use to update and actually I'd like to run them by you first to make sure it's all correct.
Okay, yeah, this is definitely the time to do it.
Cool, and of course, I'd like to get with Melanie whenever we get a chance.
Yeah, I'm coming out of quarantine, hopefully.
Okay.
Yeah, so as soon as I'm clear, I'll let you know, and then we can even meet Zoom. That doesn't matter to me either, as long as you're okay with it.
Yeah, no, I'm okay. Any way you want to do it.
All right. Well, we can even meet tomorrow if you'd like.
Tomorrow is Thursday. Yeah, I got an open in the evening, tomorrow evening.
Oh, geez, you had to go evening?
Well, I have a regular job.
That's fine. That's fine. We'll do evening, but we'll contact each other. I'll get in contact with you.
And what are the changes you want to run by me, Richard?
Well, just the dates, mostly the dates. And I actually was concerned about the number of signatures because I think we were batting around 35 signatures at one time. And then we had 10 and then I think we did once where we didn't have any signatures. I don't remember, but because all this COVID stuff, nobody wanted to go around knocking on doors.
Right.
So if we could talk about that offline, just to make sure we're all straight.
Right. Well, so from my memory, and unless anyone can correct me, we made a motion to accept the 10 signatures and we kept it open-ended. So we didn't have to vote again.
Okay, so 10 is it then? Okay.
That's how my
No, not at all. Last year, we did not require candidates to get signatures at all.
Thank you. That's what I thought.
It's on the website and all of the way that the website is, it lists all of our requirements from last year. So last year, because people didn't want to gather signatures, we didn't require any, but people still had to apply, right? So you still have to verify the candidates, they still have to apply, but the signatures were not required. For appointments, if they were off election schedule, the appointments are requiring 20 signatures.
Okay.
Or 10, whatever it says on the website.
But appointments aren't made until after the election.
Correct.
Okay, so we want to make sure we have a deadline for the applications to be posted.
Yes, that would be next month's meeting.
Okay, thank you. So as long as everybody's clear on that, I absolutely wanted to get that out there into the public.
So Richard, I can send you all of the final documents that we had, and you're welcome to update them and get them.
Thank you. I would appreciate that. I went online to find stuff, but it looked kind of outdated, and I was sure. But
well, they're all from last year still, and then all of the things that are online are PDFs and they're not editable. So I'll go ahead and send you the Microsoft Word documents.
Okay, cool. Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you. Okay. Well, that sounds like it's underway. But thanks again for you guys for taking that on. I know it can be a lot of work. I will, so then the last thing we kind of have to talk about is just election day and how I'll get the ballots to you, since, I shouldn't really be handling them since I'm up for re-election. So we'll talk about that in the future. Okay. So then moving on to our next information item, I have Georgette Gomez, and then there's someone else who was going to present with you. And do you guys need the ability to share your screen?
Yes,
Okay.
we do. And I think it's going to be Sarah Crew who's going to be doing the PowerPoint. So if we can give her access, that would be great.
Sarah Krug, you said?
Actually,
Crew.
I think it's going to be me who's sharing the.
Okay.
Oh, it's going to be Matthew.
Matthew Chaseman, Tracy.
Okay, let me find you. Here we
And
go.
Andrea, I believe we have, I don't know if she's in already, but we had somebody in the waiting room.
Okay. What was their name? Or Tracy, is there anyone in the waiting room? No.
Yeah, there is. I just put them in.
Okay.
So
Okay.
Matthew, I'm gonna make you the host, and then when you're done sharing your screen, can you make me host again, please?
Okay. And then
Yes, I can do that.
Okay.
guys. And just a reminder, everyone, this is a Monarch group. They are one of the people who responded to the RFP for the Midway. Thank you guys so much for your time.
Yeah, no, thank you, Andrea, and thank you everybody for being here and participating. I know that we all do a lot to ensure that we have that we create communities that are healthy and accessible to all. So thank you, appreciate the work that you all are doing. So this is we're really excited to be here with all of you. There's a lot of folks that are part of this presentation today. Our proposal is called Hometown SD, and it's a partnership by various different folks that you'll be meeting today. I'm actually going to hand it over to Sarah Kruger, who's part of the one of the partners from Monarch. But basically, Hometown SD is made up by Monarch, a group who is a local group that is focusing a lot on developing housing. Essex and Eden, all of these three different groups do a lot of housing and some financing, but the focus that they do is housing in San Diego and California. And then we have Jmi Sports as well, that is part of the partnership. All of these folks have come together and we responded to the proposal from the city of San Diego related to the sports arena. And we reached out because we think that, even though you're not there, you are there, you're a neighbor. And we are very much committed in making sure that our project is mindful, not only about the actual response to the development, but what would it do to the rest of the community, the ethers, right? So that's why we reached out to really try to create a solid foundation of being a true partner with the various different communities that could eventually benefit or get impacted. That's our intent today, to share what we put forward to the city of San Diego. At the end, I'm gonna give my personal information. Feel free, if you love what you see, if you want to get involved, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate. Feel free to reach out. So with that, I'll hand it over to Sarah.
Well, thanks, Georgette. And Matt, you can go next slide. But again, thank you, Andrea, and thank you, everybody, for the opportunity to present tonight. My name is Sarah Kruger-Jagger, and I'm a partner with Monarch, as Georgette said. We definitely want to hear from you as well. We're going to be presenting tonight, kind of the team and the project, but very much look forward to working together collaboratively as we continue through this process. We've certainly got a long ways to go. And again, we're excited to be here. We see a real opportunity to raise the bar. We believe that San Diegans deserve a project at the sports arena property that maximizes the types of housing that we need most in our community, and one that's built in an equitable, sustainable, and an inclusive way. The housing crisis, as we all are living and realize, is real, and the housing that we need is simply not being built in our region. We need to be building thousands more of affordable and workforce housing units each year, and we're not coming close. This is a once-in-a-generation opportunity to transform public land, to address San Diego's housing crisis, and to set the bar and create a model for what can be done in future projects. We also really strongly believe that our city deserves a team with deep local ties who understands the San Diego community and who can be trusted to deliver on commitments made. So kind of with that, you've got here, this is really the master developer team, kind of the four kind of foundational pieces, as Georgette mentioned. I represent Monarch Group. We're a multi-generation local business with more than 50 years of experience developing high quality apartment communities in San Diego and in the Western US. Together, our partners have entitled, developed, or acquired about 19,000 residential units across the Western US, including over 12,000 units here in San Diego. Our partner on the market rate in the middle income housing is Essex Property Trust, and we have executives Ray Tersini and Jaden Drown here with us tonight. Essex brings also close to 50 years of experience to this effort. They own about 5,600 apartment homes in San Diego and are one of the largest apartment owners in the state of California with about 60,000 units. Essex is a publicly traded real estate investment trust, and today they have about a $23 billion market capitalization and an executive management team that has been with the company for an average of over 20 years. Eden Housing is our affordable housing partner. Eden is one of California's oldest and most successful nonprofit housing developers with significant experience developing large-scale projects like this in partnership with public agencies. In the firm's 53 years of experience, Eden has owned, managed, and operated more than 11,000 affordable rental apartments in San Diego and other communities throughout the state of California. And Eden is led by Linda Mandelini, president and CEO since 2001, who is also here with us tonight, and you'll hear from shortly. And finally, our arena development partner is Jmi Sports, led by CEO Eric Judson, who we also hear from tonight. JMI has deep sports industry experience and relationships in San Diego and nationally. And if Eric's name sounds familiar, it's because he led the successful development of Padres Petco Park and is currently overseeing the build out of the new Aztec Stadium at SDSU West in Mission Valley. A couple really important things about the team. Every member that you see here of this team possesses a unique business model based on a little bit kind of what I touched on, but stable, long-term, multi-decade leadership. And we also look at things from a very long-term investment horizon. For Monarch, Essex, and Eden on the housing side, we build and sustain thriving, affordable middle income and market rate apartment communities for decades. That's our core competency, our passion, and our exclusive focus. Together, the three of us have entitled, developed, or acquired over 20,000 residential units and more than 85 projects in the San Diego region alone over the past 50 years. So we've got a lot of experience there. And in JMI, we have the only arena partner who has developed multiple sports and entertainment facilities in the San Diego marketplace. And again, kind of why does all this matter? The folks that you see here who are all on this call, the decision-making is not going to be dictated by some large corporate hierarchy that's 2,000 miles away. The decision-making is going to be transparent by local stakeholders and by the folks here that you're kind of all getting to know, who are very hands-on, invested, and involved in every facet of this project. Next slide. So our middle income housing partners, this is a really critical component of this project and one that is precedent setting, and it's going to require a lot of innovation and creativity. We've put together an all-star team of local, state, and national middle income housing experts who you see here. One of those professionals who's the cornerstone of this effort is Jmi Rawain, who you'll also hear from shortly, who's going to talk more about that. She is a true expert at delivering middle income housing, and in our business, it's kind of more akin to being a miracle worker or a magician because it's so hard. We don't have enough of that housing. Next slide. And this is kind of the balance of the team. Again, a lot of local folks with tremendous public-private experience, all the different kind of pieces of the puzzle that we need to bring to bear here to realize a project like this. We've got experts in finance, land use, housing, community engagement, labor, the environment, you name it. But together, a very long track record here of successfully developing visionary mixed income and mixed use housing communities in partnership with public agencies. Next slide. So this is the project, as Georgette mentioned, Hometown SD. And again, for a lot of us, I think all of you on the phone and our team, a lot of us born and raised here, we've raised families here. San Diego is home. It's not lost on any of us what a once in a lifetime kind of transformational opportunity this is. Not only on this site, but we've got an opportunity to catalyze investment in the Midway community, to be a good neighbor to Ocean Beach and the surrounding communities. And to do something big in San Diego to tackle the housing crisis and do something that's really world-class, but that still has a distinctive San Diego feel. Next slide. So this is, kind of the nuts and bolts of the project. We're proposing an inclusive community that's got over 3,000, basically about 3,250 apartment homes. We're committed as a part of that to delivering more than 2,000 of those apartment homes as deed restricted, affordable, and middle income housing. So about 62.5% of the total project units is affordable and middle income. And by doing that, we've got the ability to serve over the lifetime of this project tens and tens of thousands of San Diego families. To provide really, I think, a continuity of housing choices for our workers, our families, our formerly unhoused, and our seniors, so that San Diegans can live in the neighborhood and stay in the neighborhood. The other key components here we'll talk about here in a couple more slides, but I think one of the other important things to point out as we walk through the project and the design, kind of from an overall design standpoint, this is a park-centric community. And very green, as you'll kind of see. We've got about 18 acres of parks and open space, all centered around a central plaza area that you'll see in an urban marketplace. Next slide. So Matt, can you go next slide? Thank you. So again, housing here, it's the #1 priority of this team. It is the heart of our plan. And given that, we've come forward with something that we believe is as big and bold and responsive as to what San Diego needs, with those 2,000 deed restricted affordable and middle income apartment homes, plus a little over 1,200 market rate apartment homes. Currently, we're the only proposal to publicly commit to this many affordable and middle income homes. Next slide. So again, this is meant to be a community for all San Diegans. I think what's important here, and you kind of see in this table, we've built a lot of flexibility in what we presented to the city into our housing plan. So here we're kind of showing you 2 different scenarios, but again, this could flex based on input from the city and community stakeholders. But basically what you see here, kind of the main difference between scenario 1 and 2 is really the middle income component. So anywhere from 12.5%, so 400-ish units to 800 units. And depending on where that number goes, it's more or less on the affordable side. Next slide. And, Debbie, I'll turn it over to you here to how we're going to tackle the missing middle.
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Debbie Rawain, and I have spent my entire career on housing, 30 years. And the focus of my work is what's being called the missing middle, which is the sector of San Diego's workforce where folks earn too much to qualify for government subsidized low-income housing, but not enough to pay for the rents that are currently being asked for in San Diego. And there are over 1 million San Diegans, about 1/3 of all San Diegans fall within this middle income category. And what we're trying to do is address the regional housing needs assessment numbers here by contributing to that moderate income sector. You see there's only 37 units that were permitted. We have not been able to figure out how to build to this middle income range. And it's crucial because without providing this, we're not able to move people out of lower income housing up into the middle. And it will also take care of a lot of issues for San Diego's housing crisis by creating this continuum. So I created the Middle March Fund, and it's essentially a way to attract social impact dollars into the creation of middle income housing and ensuring that these units will stay restricted to middle income families for a very long time. I joined this team because of the Monarch, Essex, and Eden commitment to and focus on affordable housing and communities. And we share the same expertise and passion for solving the housing crisis in San Diego. Thank you, Sarah.
Linda, I'll turn it over to you here.
You'd think I would have learned by now to not talk on mute. Thank you very much for the opportunity to be here. Linda Mandelini, the CEO of Eden Housing. Sarah alluded to this earlier. We are really looking at providing a wide variety of affordable housing types, including thinking about how we serve special needs populations, veterans who are a very important population for San Diego, people who live with disabilities, permanent supportive housing, so that we help to solve the senior housing challenge, and also looking at senior housing and transition aged youth. Next slide. For our proposal, we're really looking at other amenities that create equity and opportunity for the people that we plan to serve. In particular, we're proposing a 10,000 square foot childcare center on site. We found at Eden that having on-site childcare can be an enormous amenity for the families that we serve. And we often do both childcare spots for people who are low income, but also some broader market rates slots that serve not just the folks who live in our project, but folks who live in the broader community. And we're very excited that our project includes this amenity. And then last slide, Eden has for a very long time, since 1996, been really committed to providing resident services and partnering with local organizations that do that service work. In our current projects in San Ysidro, we're partners with Neighborhood House Association in San Diego. And we do all kinds of services from job training and money management and financial education to after school and tutoring. We were one of the first nonprofits in the state and the country to really look at how we expand Wi-Fi access to low-income families. And I think as we all sit here tonight, talking again in COVID times online, it's incredible how important Wi-Fi access is for people who are lower income, and high quality Wi-Fi access is. And then last but certainly not least, we spend a lot of time thinking about health and wellness in our and how we work with our seniors, our families, and our other populations. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Eric to talk about the arena.
Thank you so much, Linda. I'm Eric Judson, CEO, founder of Jmi Sports. I've been in this market for an awful long time. And in 1996, I was the first hire on what became Petco Park, and what a journey that was. And fortunate enough now to, as was mentioned, work in Mission Valley with San Diego State on another transformational project. And as someone who spent many, many days and evenings in the Midway District at the current arena, I've got a real understanding of what is there now and what can be. And talking to Sarah and the group about this opportunity, I was very passionate about an arena that really fits this district, fits this community. If you might remember, those who are around, we didn't call it a ballpark for the Padres, we call it a ballpark for San Diego. And I think we delivered upon that. That's the same cultural approach that we're taking to this. It's not a big spaceship for an NBA or NHL team that's not coming to San Diego in the near term. And even if they did come to San Diego, this is not the right location. This is about an arena that's right-sized. We think that the 8,000 to 12,000 capacity range is right for our home teams. And we've got great home teams. You know, the Gulls are an institution here, have been here for a long time, and they draw 8,000 people. The Seals have a passionate following. There are lots of other community events and sporting events and music events that are ideally suited for the size of this arena. If you go to the next slide, you'll see how another thing we talked a lot about in downtown San Diego is going to be more than a ballpark. And that was placing a ballpark in an area that needed redevelopment. There's no question that this district needs something very similar, but in a very different way. And the arena that we envision really supports the great housing products that you've already heard about tonight. It also supports a festival type environment, parks, community gathering place. In addition to these great sporting and music events we talked about, we also want this arena to fit in the neighborhood. If you know Petco Park and the integration of that ballpark into an urban grid and allowing all of this great development to happen around it, that was very intentional. And it's our vision here too. Not a big arena with walls around it or housing surrounding it and not integrating the community. I actually think some of the greatest opportunities for development around this arena will come from the surrounding blocks. So those areas in this image that are not illuminated to the north and then where all these great, I think, eclectic opportunities for development exist, and to the south where there currently sits big parking lots, but ultimately there'll be great development. We moved the arena further to the, as far as we could, in fact, to the east, to be closer to transit, to capture people as they're entering the district. We put the parking on that side of the project to prevent them from going into the neighborhoods, traffic going into the neighborhoods, and really relying as much as we can on transit. So I guess in closing, I want you to be very, very confident that this team and all these partners you've already heard from and the many others are very thoughtful and conscious of what it means to respect the neighborhood and to build something that is right sized, that is integrated into this community, because we believe that that's what leads to the best results.
Thanks, Eric. Matt, can you go next slide? So this is another piece of this we're really excited about. So this is an urban marketplace that we've envisioned that really ties together the arena, the entertainment district that Eric talked about on the eastern portion of the site with the park-centric residential community kind of to the west. This is about a 4-acre, little under 4-acre area that we envision as a multi-use outdoor plaza. So very flexible, could open it up to the arena as well as to the park for special events and festivals, as Eric mentioned. But you know, the idea here is that we have the opportunity to incubate local entrepreneurs and local businesses from San Diego's diverse communities, including many of which hopefully are going to be living here on site. As a part of this too, from the very beginning, we engaged with the Preto and the Kobe's family, who, you know, we believe they're obviously a local institution. And we envision this. We've had a lot of good positive conversations and great feedback from them up to this point. But this outdoor plaza area is really meant to house and enable a reimagined Kobe swap meet as a part of this community. Next slide. Georgette.
So as you can see, we've given it a lot of thought, from the housing to the arena to the economic opportunity, but also who builds it, right? We're very much committed in making sure that we recognize that this project will develop a lot of opportunities for jobs. So there is an opportunity, and we're very much committed in making sure that there is a career path for local workers. It's a top priority for us. There's an opportunity to develop career pathways over many years for local tradespeople from diverse communities. We have the ability to have this project that you live in it and you can even work in this community. Next slide, please. We're wanting to provide opportunities to grow a diverse local business model, including those that are veterans, women, and people of color. So we really want to make sure that there is a diverse economic opportunity in this particular development. Next slide. Sustainability, as you all know, aside from being in a housing crisis, we definitely have a climate crisis. And as we were thinking through this project, we wanted to make sure that we were responding to provide solutions to the climate crisis. So the master developer that is part of this team has over $1 billion in green projects committed that are under construction as we speak right now. We recognize that the critical importance of green build and energy conservation, especially, is a forever impact, and it would be something that we're very much committed to. Hometown SD project will prioritize green building. We have a significant open space commitment. We are responding and dealing with stormwater capture. So we're actually incorporating stormwater capturing into the project. We are responding to the climate impact, especially that is referencing in the Midway community plan. So we really looked at the community plan that the community really worked really hard in updating, and we incorporated most of the references that are being made there into our proposal. Next slide. As Sarah was implying earlier, we are very much committed in meeting and hopefully exceeding the open space requirements in the community plan update. And I'm wondering, Sarah, if you can do the next one. I'm about to get a cough attack.
Yeah, sorry. Sure. So again, here, I think a huge part of this, again, we all live in San Diego and spend a lot of time in this community. We understand how critical just the transportation and sort of the connectivity is to this project and a lot of the constraints that exist today. So we've been, very thoughtful from the outset, want to make sure that everything that we put forth, there's been a lot of thought into this, but basically that we're delivering a neighborhood that's conducive to all modes of transportation. So whether that be, walking, biking, public transit, car, we've certainly taken all that into account. We need to make sure here that we've got a complete mobility system that accounts for all that. And as a part of that, we've already started engaging, got a lot more work to do, but with SANDAG, with MTS, to make sure that we're, I think delivering innovative transit solutions here and hopefully pulling some things forward that may be out, planned a little bit more out in the future.
I can take it, Sarah. Thanks. Sorry. Sorry about that. I'm recuperating from a cold, so I apologize for that. So, yeah, aside from being responsive to this proposal, as I stated earlier, we really are keeping in mind the climate action plan that the city's committed in bringing forward, and we want to be part of that solution. So we created once again this proposal with that in mind. Next slide. And as you can see, we really want to be a strong community partner. We are very much wanting to be as open as we're able to do. We are actually, I think we're probably one of the first groups that are going out there publicly and sharing a whole proposal. We want to be transparent, and we're seeking public input. We want to make sure that that folks give us their thoughts as we start entering into negotiations with the city. Next slide.
Back this one.
Yeah. You can go to the next one.
Oh, next one from here.
So, so with that really concludes our proposal, I believe, and we really appreciate the time that you have given us to really share what we've put forward to revitalize the Midway, and we strongly believe that this is a very strong proposal that is responding to the challenges that our region is facing, but in a very responsible way, from housing challenges to the climate challenges, but also investing in San Diegans by having a strong commitment to trying to create a proposal that will be built by San Diegans. So we really want to thank you for allowing us to share what we put forward with this amazing team that Sarah put together. And there's a lot of heart. So with that, I believe that concludes our presentation. Correct, Sarah?
Yeah. Thank you so much, everybody. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. And as I stated, I'm gonna share my contact. If there's any questions, please feel free to reach out. We really wanna bring you into being part of the team as well. And we truly do mean it, where we value the partnership, not only the partnership in terms of the partnership that it will be for the city, but also more importantly with the community. This is a forever project, and we want to make sure that you're part of it as well.
Well, we appreciate you guys or everyone showing up. Would you all be able to stay around maybe for a few comments or questions as well? Awesome, thank you. Can we try to utilize the raise hand function on Zoom if anyone wants to make a comment or has a question about the project? Because when we do both, I tend to miss someone. I see Nicole's hand up first, so Nicole, the floor is yours. And then again, anyone else wishing to make a comment, just utilize the raise hand function.
Thanks, Andrea. And thank you all so much for your excellent presentation. I thought that was wonderful. And I feel you spoke very eloquently as to being a partner for the community and really understanding what the community needs and would like to see in the project. One piece of input that I thought I would share from the families in the community, it's extremely difficult to find 3 and 4 bedroom housing options in our area. Do you have any information on a percentage of how many units would be in that 3 bedroom range? Or are they mainly 1 and 2 bedrooms?
We have a range, Nicole, and I can get you probably more specifics after this, but we do have a range of 1, 2s, and 3 bedrooms. And Linda, I know maybe you can speak to this a little bit better on the, or Andrea, on the affordable side for kind of large family and how you thought through that.
Yeah. So for the Eden side, most of what we're proposing will be what we call a large family product type. So 25% of all of our units will be 3 bedrooms, and another 25% 2 bedrooms, but 25% will be 3.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for answering my question.
Thanks, Nicole. I saw Kevin's hand up next. And if you could just lower your hand, Nicole.
Hi, I had a question about you showed 62.5% of units deed restricted. I get that some of those are up to 150% affordable, so not really affordable. But how does that compare to, say, the minimum requirement or other proposals for this area? I guess I'm curious what the benefits are to the builder for providing additional units. Does that earn you favor in the selection process? Sort of what is the thinking there?
Sure. So, and you guys can jump in here too. So this is all being driven, as you guys are probably aware, by the Surplus Lands Act. So the 5, so we're one of 5 bidders, but all of us basically to propose or to submit bids to the city, there was a minimum affordability threshold that we all had to meet, which was 25%. And I believe it's at 60% average area median income. So that's kind of that's basically the minimum threshold, Kevin. We're obviously going above and beyond that and pushing as aggressively and as hard as we can to maximize that affordable number. And maybe Matt, I don't know if you can share your screen again, slide 8. But that's kind of the breakout, Kevin, and sort of the flexibility that we've built in here. In terms of the other teams, I mean, there's some information that's public. We've been very open and transparent from the get-go. So what you see here is exactly what we presented to the city. I think the other groups that have submitted based on what's been in the press are anywhere from that minimum 25%, potentially up to 40 to 50, but a little bit unclear based on what's been shared so far.
I gave the hosting privileges back to Tracy, so I can't share. Oh, sorry, sir.
Okay. Kevin, does that answer your question though? Sorry, we can't put that back up.
I suppose. I mean, why not do 100%? I assume the city would give favor to something that has more affordable units in it, right?
Yeah, I mean, some of this, and Andrea and Linda can speak to as well, but some of this, there's a finite amount of public money that is available to build affordable housing, your traditional affordable housing. And the other, and then on the middle income, we believe that is a big part of what's needed in San Diego. As Debbie talked about, we're producing none of it. And so that's why we've incorporated that as well at scale. I mean, to our knowledge, a true mixed income project like this in our region in California and frankly anywhere else in the US, this is pretty unprecedented, Kevin. And you also need a market rate component to help fund a lot of the infrastructure and other public improvements they're going to be required here in public benefits, right? The parks, all the other great community benefits that we're talking about require a market rate component as well. And it, I think, also provides balance in terms of from a risk standpoint.
Yeah.
I would just add
anything in particular.
Yeah, I would just also add that it also creates a nice complete community that kind of represents a wide scale of incomes, which is a really great thing and a nice mix to have. So.
Thank you. I saw Anthony's hand up next.
Yes, thank you. Actually, Kevin asked almost exactly what I was going to ask before, but I have two questions, and I'm going to kind of supplement Kevin's question. Andrea, you just mentioned, you talked about the mix of communities, and one of my questions would be, and one of my recommendations, or I'd love to see, is if you're considering in the mix of residential units there, that you would integrate the three different levels of affordability, for high, middle, and low income units, rather than segregating them in silos to have a true mix. I've noticed that a lot of housing projects don't really do that. They kind of create segregation, obviously because of architectural requirements. But I was wondering if you would consider that, and if that's in the plans at all, or at any way. That's my first question.
I can go ahead and answer that. Thus far, we have integrated the neighborhood, but we are still looking at kind of individual buildings. And a lot of that is driven by our financing. So the different financing programs that we use, most notably the low income housing tax credit, really does want like its own parcel. But we take really a lot of care with our architect and design team to really create beautiful buildings that it's not going to be obvious which ones are affordable and which ones are market rate. And I would definitely encourage you to come and look at any of our properties to see that. And also having a singular building lets us provide those services that we mentioned before, those resident services, in an easy to accessible place for our residents.
Okay, thank you. The second question I have is about your commercial property. And, you mentioned a lot of green initiatives and transit. And I recognize that a lot of your commercial property is sort of, maybe I'm inferring that it's going to be really retail and services oriented based on the sports arena that's going to be put up there and a lot of restaurants and things. But in my mind, in my opinion, that doesn't really provide a lot of affordable job opportunities for the residents of the community. So to avoid traffic problems and commutes to those, would you be willing to consider or look into having commercial development that has more, maybe not necessarily heavy industry, but a really, really high paying affordable jobs rather than just service oriented retail mixed in your commercial properties?
So Anthony, it's a really good question. So we talked a little bit about the urban marketplace, but I think really the whole vision for this project, from the residential component to the commercial, we envision that commercial, and it's roughly 300,000 feet of supportive space. And we talk about this a lot kind of internally. We're not talking about your big box, your Macy's. We're talking about Macy, the individual, right? The folks that hopefully too are living, much like what you have in OB, a true live work community. That is exactly the opportunity, right, that we've got to create here. And so we envision that a lot of this space is hopefully going to be for local workers. Kobe's is obviously a huge part of that as well. And I think, again, have the opportunity to have some really cool local diverse businesses with the ability to grow, start new companies. But this is not meant to be your big box per se.
Well, I lost the audio, but thank you for your answers.
I lost audio too. Okay. And that,
can you guys hear me? Sorry.
Yeah, we can hear you now. Okay, thank you, Anthony.
Andrea, I have a question.
Yeah, it's, if you don't mind, Craig, Elizabeth had her hand up first, and then we'll get back to you.
Okay, no worries.
Yeah.
Okay, get back. It's fine.
Yeah, Elizabeth.
I'm far from an expert, but my understanding is after you put these plans in and before they'll be built, there's been a legal battle which has resulted in reinstituting the 30-foot height limit. And I wanted to know if that stays the way it is, would you build it? Would you keep a bid there? I mean, obviously you'd have to change it. And what are your thoughts on that?
Elizabeth, we're very early in this process. That was, clearly a curveball, but we're committed to working with the city as a good partner on this and seeing this through.
So you think that a 30-foot height limit, there would be some way that you could still be involved?
I think, again, we've got a ways to go, but we're gonna, to the extent we're selected, we intend to work with the city to see this project through.
Thank you.
And Jared, we'll probably have time for one more question, and then we would need to have to wrap it up.
Okay, yeah, thanks. I'm gonna, I have two, so Craig, if you could make it quick, and I have Melanie, and then if you guys could just kind of go over the timeline so we all have an idea of what, our engagement should be moving forward. Craig. Craig, you're on mute.
Better? What's the maximum height of the buildings you're proposing?
The residential buildings, Craig, are top out at about 85 feet.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, would we have time for Melanie's one question then? Go ahead, Melanie.
Hi, thanks guys. I don't know if I missed this, but what about the noise level? We already deal with planes and so much noise in our area as it is. If this is a concert venue and things of the like, I mean, what are we going to be seeing in the sky? I mean, what are we going to be seeing for what the regulations are for that kind of stuff?
Eric, can you speak to that?
Sure. Well, of course, the review of all those elements will be critical to studying the impacts. But this is, as the current building is, an interior building. We actually, compared to some of the others, and this is not what we feel so strongly about our own vision, but not having this being just an arena-centric project, this is a neighborhood project that integrates residential and a right-sized arena. But those concerts and noises, or noise and sound and light, will generally be interior elements to the project. So I don't think it'll be any different than what you have there now. I do believe, though, when you look at the integration of the residential, the park, and the arena, it will be a dramatic improvement to what you currently have in the district.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. And before I let you go, can we just get a timeline of when decisions should be made and maybe how best to publicly engage and give our thoughts about any of these projects for the city?
Sure, George, to jump in here, but we're basically, Andrea, we're in all five of the groups, including us, we're in a, so we all submitted on December 4th, or just maybe it was December 3rd, but basically the next day, the city commenced a 90-day negotiation period. So this is kind of in following with surplus lands. So we are all in that process now. We actually all have interviews with the city this week. And so we'll know more about process and next steps. But basically this 90-day negotiation period will commence in early March. At which point, we expect that this will go to Land Use and Housing and Council for kind of more feedback and input and next steps.
Okay. So any comments about our concerns or our, about which project we should go to our council member and possibly CODA's office? Or the mayor's office?
Yes.
All right, guys, I stepped away for 1 sec. The question was on the process, correct?
Yes.
About next steps. Yeah, I believe Sarah just mentioned that 90-day negotiation period. The public engagement portion, before we bring this forward to council, we're hoping to basically put together some type of subcommittee to vet through all the responsive bids from there. That's all the info I have right now. More so my focus has been on handling the lawsuit that has been brought forward.
Okay, well, please do keep us in the loop then, CODA, about any public engagement opportunities that are going to happen. It's obviously close to us and we care deeply about the project, and we appreciate everyone who showed up and took the time out of their schedules tonight to give us an overview. And we really do appreciate it and your engagement with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, of course. Have a great rest of your evening. Okay, moving on to our one action item. So So hopefully you guys all watched the video I sent around. It was very informative from the city's development services department. I think it was a couple of weeks ago. And it walks through the presentation of all the code changes. I, of course, sent out the actual written code changes to bring the city in line with SB 9, which was the which was the state legislation that allows for lot splits and to build more units on what would now be considered single family zoning. So for anyone utilizing this lot split, there are going to be new code updates to ADUs. The land use, or not, the Housing Commission will be hearing this item on the 20th. So if we do want to take action on any of the code changes and make any recommendations, now's the time to do it. And then I will happily send those off to Land Use and Housing if we do decide to make any recommendations, any suggestions. So for all of the, just as a brief reminder, a refresher for everyone, and for anyone who didn't read through the code changes or watch the video, these new code updates will allow for 0 side setbacks for any new developments if only for single story, and only if you are butted to a commercial space or anything zoned for commercial. So if your lot is surrounded by residential units and you're building more than 2 stories on this unit, then you have to obey a 4-foot setback. So either way, the setbacks are smaller because typically it is 6 feet now. And as I said, 2-story adjacent, if you're adjacent to a residential, you have to obey the 4-foot setbacks. For every unit that you build, that if you're not in a TPA, you have to provide 1 parking spot for that unit. But after you build a 3rd unit, you don't have to supply any more parking spots. So it'd be for the first 2 units you add, you have to supply 1 additional parking spot for each unit. You also have to provide 1 tree for every 5,000 square feet you create on your new lot. And you also have to provide 1 street tree for every 30 feet of street frontage you have. And they also waive the diff fees for the first new unit you add. So if you're only going to build 1 unit on your property utilizing these, you don't have to pay any diff fees, but for every additionals for the 2nd or the 3rd unit, you would have to pay some diff fees. So those are the basic changes to the codes. Do we have any discussion, any comments, or any motions that want to be made? Talk to.
I have a question or comment. I also saw in there some, I guess, minor adjustments to the ADU and junior ADU laws were part of this. In case people aren't aware, the city had already passed laws that allow additional ADUs. Those are not yet certified in the coastal zone, and this expands it a little bit more. So I think on this, it would allow 2 ADU units on most lots in Ocean Beach, whereas currently you can only build 1. And on some of the higher density lots, you can't build any. And those, I think, are allowed actually at 0 setback for ADUs. So there is some, I guess, efforts by some organizations to push back on some of these laws that were already passed. And this is, I guess, an excuse to do so because the city has exceeded the state requirements on some of this, particularly the ADU stuff. I'm also a little curious, and I don't know if anyone, Andrea, knows the answer to this. There was a lot of language in the lot splitting that dealt specifically with lots zoned as single family. And it almost read as if a single family lot could be developed more dense than a multifamily lot based on this. So I'm not sure how that potentially applies to our multifamily in Ocean Beach. And I guess my last thing I'm curious is if CPC has weighed in on this document.
Yeah, so CPC did take a position last month. I do believe they voted in favor of a lot of restrictions. I did not vote in favor of it because they tried to restrict the height for ADUs, which, as we've seen a lot of ADUs permitted, most of the ones in our neighborhood go up to 30 feet. So just putting a height restriction on that didn't feel right to me, because when they go up 30 feet, we get, adequate amount of parking and living space. So, the board's approved it before, and I thought it would be hypocritical to vote in favor of such restrictions then. The big one that CPC had a lot of issues with was, like Kevin pointed out, the density, but also the diff fee waiver. And that's really my big issue with this. I know the need for housing is great, but the need for parks and street improvements is also great. So I would never agree with waiving the diff fees. So did that cover most of it, Kevin, or your questions before I move on to the other people with their hands up? I might not be able to answer everything too.
Yeah, no, I think that's good.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So I see Chris's hand up first.
Yeah, thank you, Andrea and Kevin both. Andrea specifically for that good, thorough rundown of all the things that some of us might have missed in reading the document. I did read it. So for me, the big one is the setbacks, the interior and rear side setbacks. So both rear and interior setbacks, and the fact that you can actually build right up to the property line. And it's actually really poorly worded in the draft, where it talks about kind of what you alluded to, Andrea, where if you're abutting a commercial property, then you have to adhere to the 4-foot setback. But if you're abutting a residential property, that you can basically build right up to the property line. And so the way I read the draft, and then by the way, I'm generally in favor of SB 9. And it does seem like this is an opportunity for us to weigh in, since the city is now looking at how we might review some of these guidelines or law. I think the rear and interior setbacks are a real big deal, because if you think about it, if you can build up and it's residential lot after residential lot after residential lot, and every one of them can build to the rear and the interior setback, you're creating a block. I mean, it's just a solid block of housing. And if I'm misinterpreting that, then I would encourage a rewording of the language in the draft on pages 45 and 53. 53 is the junior ADU section, but 45 is where they introduce the language from SB 9, and it doesn't make sense. If I'm interpreting the way I just relayed it, I think it's a problem. I think you're really just creating over density in some major ways that haven't been thought through as well as they could. And then on a minor note, there's some typos as well. On page 45, has some repeated words right back to back in the same section. So those are kind of my comments.
Thank you, Chris. And yeah, from my reading, it does seem that you can build rows of house, but they would all be single story. So it wouldn't be double story.
Single story up to 16 feet of height, that's still pretty high, right?
Yeah.
And it's still, even if they are single level up to like 12 feet, you're still gonna have just a solid block of buildings here. I think it's a problem.
Okay, thank you, noted. Thank you for your comments. Virginia, I see your hand up next. Just remember to unmute.
Right. Just from a practical standpoint, the section about trees is unrealistic. I think that this infill is already encouraging people to cut down mature trees in their backyard and build more units. And then by the time you get 3 units on a 25-foot lot here in OB, well, take into consideration you are supposed to plant at least 10 feet away from any building. So once you have the 3 units on the lot, you won't have room to open an umbrella, not let alone have a tree there. And there probably would not be enough light with all of the buildings that would be surrounding it anyway, if you did put a small tree in. So I don't see how we can have both to build our urban forest and increase our coverage and put in all of these ADUs. I don't think they'll be able to enforce it.
Thanks. No, that's a good point. Thank you for bringing it up. I see Newell Booth's hand up next.
Thank you. I'm Newell Booth. I'm active in the Neighbors for Better San Diego. I would like to bring you up to speed. The Land Use and Housing Committee is going to hear this housing action package at their next meeting on January 13th at 1 p.m. That will be the Land Use and Housing Committee. I urge yourself to get on that agenda and attend it. It's an opportunity to express your opinion. The Neighbors for a Better San Diego have been working for about 3 or 4 months studying the accessory dwelling issue, stimulated by the pushing through that the city council did in just before the last election to push through an accessory dwelling unit that far exceeded the state requirements. I encourage you to go to neighborsforbettersandiego.org. I'll put that in the chat and look at our studies and our information. If you sign up for our email list, we will keep you informed when it goes before which committees. And we are planning on being in full force at the Land Use and Housing Committee to try and put some sanity into the accessory dwelling unit laws. So we need your help and your stepping in on this issue, whether you may not agree with everything that we're up for, but this is extremely important, and we feel that it will affect the single family residents in San Diego for the far future, and will particularly my personal concern is that it's incentivizing developer-owned properties that become apartment houses, and the single family character of the housing is just gone with that. Thank you, and I appreciate being here. By the way, we briefed you about 3 or 4 months ago on our things. If you have any questions, I'm available.
Thank you, Noel. Next, I see Anthony's hand up.
Thank you, Andrea. Actually, I share Chris's concerns about the setbacks, and I wanted to wrap my head around it because I'm a little confused, especially after Kevin said something about AD units being able to violate the setback 100%. So, Andrea, you said that in this draft, and I read it again, residential units may violate the setback if they abut against a commercial property. So they can have 0 setback if they're single story and they're against a commercial property, right?
Yes, and also 2 stories if it is against a commercial property can also go 0 setback.
So how does that work with what Kevin said about ADUs that can violate setbacks? Because that means an ADU, you could designate a structure as an ADU and just have 0 setback. Then is that the loophole that he was talking about then?
Well, so the difference is the lot split one is sort of like for single family lots. That one is what Andrew's talking about with the setback requirements. The ADU portion of it is what would apply on the areas that are already multifamily lots. So you can add a dwelling unit, right, up to your whatever density, or you can add ADUs, right? And ADUs have different requirements. So it depends on what you designate the unit as.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So if you have on either side of you a residential property and you have an ADU, you can violate you can have a 0 setback regardless, as long as you say it's an ADU, which has to be 50% of the main unit, right? So,
Well, no, so the ADU laws are pretty loose on that as well. You could probably build one bigger than your house now.
see, because the reason I'm asking this and bringing this up is like Chris said, it doesn't sound like a big deal. There's 4 feet on either side and whatever's in the front, but that 4 feet is a valuable strip of property. And not only that, like he said, you can end up having row houses, big, blocks, contiguous blocks. So I'd like to get maybe some more clarification on that. In a practical sense, what this draft does and how that plays with the ADU restrictions in the coastal zone, because to me, that's a big loophole there that maybe they make it so convoluted that it's impossible to really understand it. So I just wanted to bring that up to the team.
These are also 2 different codes, Anthony. And if you do utilize the SB9 lot split, then the ADU laws are completely separate than if you're going about developing an ADU with the ADU laws. Like, this is a totally separate code enforcing these developments if you specifically utilize the lot split mechanism in SB9.
Okay. All right. I just see how maybe somebody could use both.
No, and I'm sure that, and I'm sure that DSD will mess it up somehow.
Well, you can use both. You can split your lot and then put ADUs on each lot.
With 0 setback.
Yeah, so you could have 6 units on your one used to be single family lot.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt.
Thank you.
Okay, I see Virginia spoke, and then I have Elizabeth Getzoff. Oh, sorry.
I wanted to reply and comment on the setbacks and on the trees. I live across the boundary from the OB Planning Board across Froud, and I have been living next to a construction site for the last 2 years. My property is a 2-on-1 that was built in the 50s. And the underlying lots here are 2 long skinny lots, but my house and the apartment over my garage cross those boundary lines. So next door to me was a similar arrangement, only two of those side by side that were owned by a man who lived to be 100 and died, and he had a single family residence that was a small redwood house. And there are now 4 long, narrow, 2-story high structures. And the developer, who I have managed to maintain communication with, tries to follow the rules and tries to make something that's decent. He and I disagree on what that might be, but there are several points. The first one is I've noticed a great fall off in birds and animals because the place next to me was the most wooded in my entire neighborhood. And it's mostly concrete and artificial turf now. And I agree with Virginia's comment that it'll be extremely difficult to put a tree on the lot. In terms of setbacks, for reasons that I did look up in the code, but don't remember all the details, the standard setback here is not 4 feet, but 3 feet. And the nearest structure, I'm on a cliff, basically. The cliff is over me. So these houses are basically 3 stories above me because they start at my roof level. And the 3-foot setback is a real challenge because it's a narrow width for scaffolding. I mean, I have been repeatedly asked and have agreed for them to come onto my property because it's nearly impossible for them to actually do the construction with a 3-foot setback. It's really tricky. And the developer commented on the ADUs, which he thinks are excessive because these are, $1.5 to $3 million homes that he's building. And he claimed that if you built an ADU to the property line, that would then preclude your neighbor from doing the same because there was some, and I don't know if this is accurate, I haven't looked it up, but it seemed to be that you couldn't have 2 structures closer than, I assume 3 feet, but I don't know what it is. So he foresaw a battle of people rushing to put in their ADUs to the property line, because as soon as their neighbor did that, then they wouldn't be able to. So
And I've got to jump in really quick. That's the language I'm referring to in this draft, where it's really poorly worded. If because it basically says that you can build up to the 0 setback unless the neighbor next to you is a residential property. But how they're defining residential and single dwelling, to Kevin's point earlier, it doesn't read clearly. The standard setback is 3 feet on either side. So Libby, you're right about that. But this SB9 and this integration of it into the city ordinance would allow you to build right. And there's a couple examples of this. If you ever, I could name some properties, but garages that are built right on the property line. And if you think about, okay, so one property has a garage or a building right on the property line, and the neighbor does the same thing, you're sharing a garage wall. That's what it comes down to. And the way this ordinance is written, or the law, it's really not clear, even with the 16-foot height distinction. So that's my concern, is that you're going to have a block of buildings right up on each other. And if they're saying that if you beat your neighbor to the punch, and then you can build to the property line, but they can't, well, that doesn't make any sense either. So the wording really needs to be looked at again.
Thanks, guys. Kevin, I see your hand up again.
Yeah, I'm hoping that Noel can answer this. I've seen a lot of back and forth about the bonus units and what that allows. And some have said it's unlimited within the transit areas. It's not clear to me how that's written, or how that could be maxed out. I mean, can I just keep going as long as they're all affordable units? Or is it just I just get one bonus unit? Or is that not clear? Is he still on?
Noel, you can
Oh,
unmute.
there.
Thank you. It is unlimited up to the far floor area ratio requirement. And that means, but it can exceed it by a little bit based upon whether you're declared affordable and how many affordable units how many bonus units you get. But that unlimited is only within the transit priority area. It is not in the regular area. And if I recall right, OB does not have very much transit area. You need 2 regular bus stops, or 2 regular bus routes at any stop for that to be a bus route in the transit area. So in Ocean Beach, it's other than right close to maybe Sunset Boulevard or something like that would be, and Voltaire might be a transit priority area, but that'd be a half mile as the crow flies.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because we are not in the parking standards transit priority area. We are not in the transit area, but we are in the transit priority area. The city has 3 different overlays, and I don't know the damn difference between them, to be honest. So, but I do know that we could easily become part of all 3 of those.
In the transit priority area, they're basically social engineering people to use transit. The difficulty is that, especially for houses that are overlooking Mission Valley, it's a 3 or 4 mile walk downhill or uphill to get to that transit stop.
So it sounds like this would apply to the smaller of the transit area overlay maps, is what you're saying.
Well, there's one transit priority area map, and it's as the crow fly, period.
Mm-hmm. Well, I might have to talk to you about that offline. It's been a sort of confusion in all of these new policies, in which one they're referring to. So, thanks.
Yeah. I see Terry Taylor's hand up. You can go ahead and unmute yourself and speak. Terry, are you with us? Okay, well, if you do get unmuted, feel free to hop in and give your comments. So, but from what I'm hearing from everyone else, there seems to be some confusion over the TPA's concern about the enforceability of the tree planting requirements and also confusion about the setbacks. So stemming from this, does anyone have a motion that they are crafting or would like to present?
I think the board is very interested in the setback issue, but that's already in the code now, pretty much, you know, with regard to the ADUs. So I don't know that that would be productive to speak on that. I mean, we'd be asking them to go the other direction.
Well, we can ask, I'm sure, clarification. Obviously, the code is unclear, as Chris has pointed out. I don't know if we can ask about changes, but certainly clarification, I think, is warranted.
Yeah, and honestly, if for no other reason than the typos, I mean, I'm looking at section, it's page 45, section 2B, letter 3I, and there's a repetition of the phrase "that is," and so that, I mean, that adds to the confusion, but it reads one-story dwelling unit structures that exceed 16 feet in height and multi-story dwelling unit structures may observe a 0-foot interior side yard and rear yard setback unless the side or rear property line abuts another premises that is residentially zoned or developed with exclusively residential uses, in which case a 4-foot setback shall be observed. But anyways, there's a typo right there, but the language in that is what I'm questioning. It doesn't make sense. Some people are reading it like you can beat your neighbor to the punch. I'm reading it like you could build side by side by side. Every premise could build to the rear and interior side yard setback. So they just need to clean that language up, and it seems like we have an opportunity to propose that back to the city. I understand this comes from the state law SB 9, but it seems like we have an opportunity to get some clarity around at least this one section.
I would say that if it sounds like it's a negative thing, so you're saying it reads like that, but they should probably more explicitly say if the residential property abuts a commercial property, they can have a 0 setback.
Yeah, and that's what
Period.
I heard Andres say at the kickoff, and maybe that was from the video. I didn't watch the video, so maybe the city's already attempting to clarify that, but it's not clear in the draft, the written draft.
That would be my suggestion, is to make it more explicit rather than make it say, oh, if it's unless it's in another residential unit, just say it. Put out there, say if it abuts a commercial property, you can have a 0 setback.
Yep,
avoid the confusion.
Yep, I agree.
I would move to support Neighbors for a Better San Diego's positions regarding setbacks and tree requirements. And maybe their ADU stuff, which I forget what they were recommending on that. I mean, if we're gonna do something.
Well, if we're, I would like to see that explicit language before we vote, not just a motion to support them. Do you have it handy? Or
I don't think I'd be ready to to do that. It's me.
I mean, I know there's serious concern about trees, and I'm also concerned about the DIF funds, and would certainly support a motion that expresses that as much, and the clarification of the language as well.
The thing I worry about is if we ask for more separation, more required yards, less lot coverage, then you just end up with taller buildings, and you have a bunch of 30-foot boxes, on each lot. So you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. We know these developers are going to build out to the maximum.
Well, you can certainly reserve the front setback of every property for trees. And say that, and then build around, design a build around that if that's practical, but unless it's already been violated, then they can't. But that could be written in. We could
Well, they're
recommend
not-
that as well.
I mean, they're not touching the front setbacks.
Yeah.
With the
15.
other-
Virginia, I saw your hand pop up.
That's the thing that I think that the planners of the lots, how they're going to be laid out, will not be taken into account the 10-foot radius that the trees need. Not that's 20 feet, a 20-foot circle, and they'll have everything drawn up, and there's no place for a tree, and so be it. And there's no place for a garden if they're building 30 feet up, because there's no sunlight in these dense neighborhoods. So it's really a bad situation. The front setback is a good place for the trees on the private property. If there's enough room and if they get enough light there, depends which side of the street you're on. So.
I can tell you from my experience, when I did my design, I had to go back to the drawing board and ensure that there was space in my front setback for a 20-foot radius. So yeah, there's already a mechanism in there. If the development, the DSD does their job. Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they just let people build whatever they want, as we've seen.
Yes, we have seen. Okay. I don't see anyone else's hands up. Is there anyone else seeking to make any more comments, or do we have someone putting together a motion? But
I might give this a
like
shot.
as Newell pointed out, January 13th is Land Use and Housing, January 20th is Planning Commission. So this would be the last meeting we have to discuss and possibly give any feedback. Yeah, Newell.
I do have one slide that summarizes Neighbors for Better San Diego position, if you'd like me to show it.
I'm muted. So I'm muted. Let's hear the motion. I don't know if we.
I just you know it.
Yeah. Do you? But if you could, if you have the text, you can put it in the chat box too, so Tracy doesn't have to go through the rigmarole of making you a co-host and sharing screens.
You should
Kevin,
be able to share your screen. I set it up so that participants can share.
Everyone can? Okay.
Yeah.
Kevin, dangerous. Were you going to say you could put together, or were you going to try to put something together?
I've got two bullet points here. If somebody wants to add an amendment to that, shoot. And this is general, so this would be basically to give you something to stand on to support. I don't know how this would show up in a letter or what, but I would move that the Ocean Beach Planning Board recommends preserving setbacks to the extent legally possible under the new Senate bills, and require diff fees on all non-deed restricted units.
Thanks.
So if you do an affordable unit, you can waive the diff. Otherwise, you gotta pay something, and that should at least be our general priorities on these.
I would urge us to, I guess I don't know how strongly worded we can make the language around trees, because Virginia did bring up some concerns, and I certainly don't want to see any, our tree canopy get smaller than it is.
Yeah, I mean, maybe we should be asking to preserve or replace, mature trees that are removed for development.
Yeah, not just the one required.
Mhm.
Shoot, sorry, I have to get my charger. Yeah, so not just the one that would be required based on frontage and square footage, but any mature trees torn down for development?
Well, if they remove a mature tree and replace it with the minimum required size of tree, there's an exponential difference in the benefits between a small young tree sapling and a mature tree. So if we can recommend against removing mature trees and conserving them as part of the design of the lot, that would go a long way.
Well, the way it is now, they can tear down 4 mature trees and put 1 in.
Yeah.
So we'd be asking for at least 4 trees, or maybe they could do it like the affordable stuff is, you can put 1 in somewhere else in the neighborhood, something like that. So at least you get something. Everyone's gonna kick and scream that, oh, I can't develop my lot to the max because of this stupid trees in the way, right?
And there's nothing stopping them from cutting the trees down as it is because they're on private property. So.
So do you have a suggestion for anything we can add to the motion concerning trees, Virginia?
Well, I would ask that they consider requiring retention of mature trees on the lot.
Okay, to the extent possible. Okay. Kevin, would you accept that friendly amendment?
I would.
Okay, cool. Do we have maybe a second on the motion? And can we pop it in the chat box if we do get a second?
I can second that motion.
Thank you, Tracy. Anthony, I have a second. Okay, fantastic. So Tracy, will you call the roll call and vote? And I will let me read the motion first and then we'll call the roll and vote. Okay, recommend preserving setbacks to the extent legally possible, require fees on non-restricted units, and consider the retention of mature trees to the extent possible. Fantastic, thank you. Okay, Tracy.
Who firsted and seconded?
Kevin made the motion, Anthony seconded.
All right, Melanie had to step out, so she is not here. Chris.
Yes.
Anthony.
Yes.
I vote yes. Tom and Jane are not here. Kevin.
Yes.
Thank you. Craig.
Yes.
Richard.
Yes.
George.
Yes.
Andrea.
Yes.
Newman. Wasn't he here? Oh yeah, he's here. Newman.
Yeah.
Newman. You need me to unmute you?
Right.
All right, I can't unmute him. I can only ask to unmute him, but I'll come back. Nicole.
Yes.
Virginia.
Yes.
Newman. I guess that's I don't even know what is that? Is that a technical difficulty vote, or I mean,
we call it a technical difficulty, and I'll see.
Okay.
We're going to be around for at least another 10 minutes. Maybe he can figure it out.
All right,
but
cool.
I think the motion passes regardless. Yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
Right.
So thank you to everyone. I will go ahead. I'll send that to everyone on land use and the council members on land use and housing, and then also submit public comment to Planning Commission. I think I should be able to make the meetings too, and give our statement. I'd also encourage anyone else to do any written statements or call into the meeting if you have the time as well. Again, the 13th is when the land use and housing is hearing this, and January 20th is when the Planning Commission will be hearing this. So 13th and the 20th. Cool. And thank you to Neighbors for Better San Diego. Yeah, Yes.
You're
that's-
very welcome. By the way, the planning commission has already heard it. And they voted to forward recommendation for approval of the planning department's housing action package as modified by requiring 2 trees rather than 1 tree.
Oh, shoot. Oh, yeah. I was looking at the wrong notice. Thank you. So the 13th is when that meeting is. Sorry, the 20th is a different.
Yeah, the 20th might be the full council if it gets by the land use and housing.
No. So 13th. Thanks.
13th is land use and housing, 1 o'clock by Zoom.
Okay, thank you. So moving on, moving on to reports. I don't have much to report other than the fact that I'm gonna get in touch with council office. I was hoping Teddy was gonna be here to just get clarification on the implementation of the lottery system for STRs and how that's going. So hopefully I'll hear back from that within the week, and I will of course distribute whatever I hear back and how that will be moving forward to everyone else. If there were any other questions that anyone had for council office, tell me now, email me, and I'm gonna write a email to Teddy tomorrow. Virginia, I saw your hand up.
It's not for council office, but I do have a question. I'd like to save the chat and I don't remember how.
Tracy, can you help out? I'm not the best with this.
I'm sorry, what do you want to do?
She wants to save the
Save
chat.
chat.
Oh, you should be able to just highlight whatever text it is that you want. And I usually just copy and paste it, like highlight it, copy
Oh.
and paste it somewhere.
I thought there was a function for that. I've done it before. I can't find it.
There is, it's right next to the smiley face on the bottom right-hand corner of the chat box.
Oh,
3
yeah.
dots.
Oh,
yeah.
in
The
there,
3 little
okay.
dots. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I usually
Thank
just
you.
pull it out of the chat and put it in my notes, so I don't typically save stuff.
Thank you.
Okay. And that's all I have. Craig, you have a treasurer's report?
Yes, I do. The current bank balance is $1,331.24.
Thank you. Kevin, do we have a PRC report?
Yeah, there was no meeting last month or the one before, so there probably will be in 2 weeks. So stay tuned if you're on the PRC. One thing I was curious for Teddy's sake is a follow up on Bermuda stairs. Park and Rec Improvement Fund Committee had said that was supposedly going to get bid out end of last year, and nothing has been updated on their CIP stuff. So I'm wondering when what the status is on that.
You got it.
Could you please CC me on the email to Teddy?
Of course, Coda.
Thank you, guys.
Okay. Any other liaison reports?
I have one.
Go for it, Anthony.
The Airport Noise Advisory Committee met just before Christmas. The chair of the committee, the advisor of the committee, is resigning to head up the Jewish Community Services. We've seen improvement in airport and aircraft noise due to the fact of better integration of stage 5 quieter aircraft coming through. Those are the A320 Neos and the 737 Maxes. Hopefully that'll continue. And the noise committee will be meeting at a wider pace, so not every month, but every other month going forward for a while. That's it.
Good. Well, lucky you. Less meetings, more time for the planning board stuff. All right. Does anyone else have any other committee reports or updates? No, nothing for arts, Chris or Tracy, nothing about the library. Laura, have you heard? Oh, Laura, have you heard anything more about the public feedback process from the library people? Or how we're going to move forward with that? You're muted. Yeah.
Thank you for asking me.
No,
No, but there has been gossip that we will have a new branch manager this week.
Oh.
Once we get a branch manager, then they're going to be trained and maybe February will open. In terms of the expansion, we're going to be meeting later on this month on Zoom with the folks from the planning and development and the library. And I think they're going to try to coordinate an open meeting with the OB Town Council.
Okay, good.
That's a think, not a sure.
All right. Well, exciting that the library might open up again in February.
Yes.
Maybe we can get that guy on Santa Cruz to build it. He'll have it done in a few months.
All right. Well, thank you everyone again. Good to see you all. Happy New Year. And we will talk again, in February. And don't forget to get your applications in if you want to join us again for next year of more fun stuff. But I'll let you all know what Teddy says if he emails me back. But see you guys around town, maybe. Bye.